Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today we're here to talk about why you should stop neglecting yourself.
Thanks, Dallas. This was going to be called Stop Giving Your Adult Children Money. However, I thought, no.
That's what it is.
Stop neglecting yourself.
Yeah. It's a bit more...
Exclamation point.
You know what's going to happen now? As this podcast goes up, the exclamation point's going to be dropped off and you're going to go, no, there needs to be an exclamation.
There needs to be an explanation.
Yeah.
That was a Seinfeld episode.
Was it?
There was... Elaine was the editor of Pendant Publishing and she started dating one of the writers.
Yeah.
And what had happened is that they had a fight over her use of exclamation marks, and he said you shouldn't have used an exclamation mark in this letter that she was writing.
Yeah. And
they end up breaking up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was assigned to edit his book.
Yeah.
Because she's working in the publishing department. And she edited it and she just peppered it with exclamation marks all over the book.
But I think that's a good example, a good point here, because Jake, we never use exclamation marks in our titles, but you've consciously used one here.
Yeah. So I was going to say stop giving your adult children money. Now, I went, hang on a sec, this is neglect.
Yeah.
And there's a whole cohort of people here that continue to neglect themselves.
Yep.
And what I heard, I had a meeting with a listener just the other day, and this lady has the ability to get ahead quite well over the next 10 years because she's earning quite a good level of money. However, when we look at her superannuation balance, it's behind the eight ball.
Yep.
And part of the reason is that as a female, she was out of the workforce while she had children. So, and in addition to that, because she is in her late 50s, and we just wished superannuation a happy birthday just the other day, 30 years old, superannuation is in 2022.
Yeah.
She was in her late 20s when she got the first dollar of superannuation paid in.
Which is when she probably stopped work to
when she stopped work to have children.
Yeah.
So she went through and said, I've got a house that used to be my house. She'd moved away, and the house is now rented by one of her adult children. Who are very sporadic with paying rent. And it just got me to thinking, this has got to stop.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not going to call this child a kid because he's not a kid. No. He's a 27, 28-year-old man.
Yeah.
Who is working. For some reason, this generation, your generation, the listeners' generation, feel the need to give adult children who should be standing on their own 2 feet completely.
Yes.
They feel the need to give them money when A, the adult child doesn't need that money, but B, and this is the more important point, you're neglecting yourself doing that.
Yeah. This is one of those things that it'll probably be a relatively short podcast because I just agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
What I'd say to add to that is, so there's a thing we just talked about in our previous podcast about think of your budget and think of all the line items in your budget and all the things that you've got to spend money on and all the non-discretionary expenses, your bills and you put food on the table, that sort of thing. And then think of all of your discretionary expenses. Now, in another podcast, we talked about putting in as a line item buying back your time. And so for people, as we said, maybe in their late 50s, early 60s, there's more of a movement towards one of the, the things that they actually want to do is potentially cut back on work. And that means that they will have less disposable spend, but they're basically buying back their time as a line item in their budget. Further to that, what I actually wanted to say is think of this as there's three different line items here. It's maybe a bit of a tortured analogy, but there's buying back your time, which we talked about. So think of it that way. If you weren't giving so there's three line items on the budget: buying back your time, there's providing for your future self as another line item, and then there's giving money to your kids. Now, at the moment, for a lot of people, they're not spending enough money on their future self. They're not putting enough money into superannuation to get that where they need to be.
Yep.
They may want to buy back their time. They might actually not want to be working as hard as what they are now. Or there may actually be a number in the line item of giving money to your kids. Now, like anything in a budget, those three line items are in trade-off. The money that you give to your kids is by its nature money that you don't have to buy back your time, and it's money that you don't have to take care of your future self and to fund your own needs in the future.
And they don't need it.
And then, so there's a completely separate issue here, which is that it's not good for anyone.
It's not good for anyone.
I don't think it's good for them. I don't think it's good for the parents. It's
certainly not good for you, and we don't think it's good for them. And we're not talking about the 21-year-old here that's still at university or just finished university and on minimum wage or the fourth year apprentice. These adult children that I see are 25, 26, 27, 28-year-olds. They've got good jobs.
Yep.
Or they don't have good jobs because they don't need to have good jobs because mum and dad are subsidising everything.
Human beings are we're crazy in some ways, but we respond to incentives. So if I can get the things that I need without actually having to do any work for it.
If you bring food to a lion, it will lay under a tree all day. It will never hunt. It's true.
Yeah. No, so I think there's a couple of things there. I think it's not good for that. It's not good for your kids. So I touched on it. It's not good for your kids. So it's not good for you because there are other things that you probably, for most people, and these are not people we're talking to where we go, you're earning $200,000 a year. You've got way more money in retirement savings than what you need. You just don't need that money. Sure, give the money to you. We still wouldn't say give the money to your kids probably because it's not good for the kids, but that would be different if we were saying, there's really nothing else that you need to spend money on. You don't need to buy back any of your time. You don't need to fund your future needs at all. You're all sorted for retirement. You've already spent all the money on yourself that you want to spend. You've just got all the spare money. What are you going to do with it? There are people who are in that situation, but they are few and far between. What we tend to see is these expenses are, it's not, the reason you shouldn't do this, number one, which is it's not good for you, is it's not that it's not good for you, it's that you can't afford to do that. When you look at those other line items in the budget of funding your future needs and buying back your time, that takes a fair bit of money to fund that. Like you
look, it takes a lot of money, and if you look at the alternative of that money, and if that money goes into your retirement savings over a period of 10 years, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in this situation for a lot of people. So,
and so this is the point that you've touched on. I think you're touching on. I'm going to jump in front of you because this is the other thing that the point I want to make here is if you think of these as line items in the budget and you say money going, giving money to kids, what people tend to do is they only account for the actual dollars that they have given that kid. Things they don't take into account are unpaid loan repayments, unpaid rent.
Yes.
Car registration, insurance that's still in mum and dad's name, phone and internet bills. So you've got these are common areas of neglect. Phone and internet bills that they're still on our phone and internet bill. And again, that may be more cost effective to do it that way, but put it in the budget. Put it as that's money I'm giving to my kid. I'm paying their $80 a month phone bill. That is a gift from me to my child every month. Free rent is a big one. Whether it's whether it's in this example, someone who's living in their parents' house and paying rent sporadically, whether it's someone who's living with their parents and not paying any rent or boarding, like free food. So the parents who take their kids out and take their kids out for dinner and the parents always pay, or the kids come over and eat them out of house and home, or the kids are still living at home and not paying for any food. There's all these different areas where if you said to most, I think where this is a bit dangerous, is that if you said to most people, do you give money to your kids? The two things that happen are they underestimate the amount of actual money that they give those kids, because it doesn't tend to be, I give my kids $300 per week. It tends to be, they got caught short, so I gave them $1,000, or I lent them $1,000. I probably won't see that money, so I gave them $1,000 here, or $5,000
and again, I
here.
think kids undersells it here. They are your kids.
Yes.
But they're 25-year-olds, they're 28-year-olds, they're 30-year-olds. I've seen 35-year-olds.
Yep.
These are adults.
Yes. And that's part two of that, which is your point, is not only is it not good for you, because it's often far more money than what you think. There are all these areas of neglect where you are neglecting yourself and spending money on your adult children rather than yourself. Yep. You need to spend a fair bit of money on your future self and or buying back your time. The second part of that, which we've talked about before, is about it's not good for the kids. It's not good for the adults. It's not good for any. It's not good for any 30-year-old human being.
Usually you want at least a zero-sum game.
Yes.
You want a mutually beneficial thing first.
Yeah.
After that, you want a zero-sum game, which means if it's bad for one, it's at least good for the other.
Yes.
This is a situation where it's
that's a great point.
It's bad for both.
Yes.
It's bad for both.
I think of the analogy of, and it's not the same, but could you imagine if, everyone says about our kids, they left uni and they've gone and they've got a job, or they're, moved out of home, and, it's been great for them. They've really, they've come into touch with reality, and they're having to deal with the real world. Imagine if that child who's now 24 and goes and starts their career. Imagine if, so they've got their employer who's paying them $1,000 a week, and that's what they've got to live on. Imagine if every time they got to the end of the week and didn't have enough money, they just could say to their employer, hey, come on, boss man, can you pay my phone bill? Can you pay my this? Oh, I got to move house. Can you help me pay for the removalist? Or I've got to pay this bond. Can you? Yeah. That would last 3 weeks. The employer would go, that's not how this works. You are an adult human being. We are in a mutually beneficial relationship here where you're helping me by working for me. I'm helping you by paying you. But there's a limit to these things. By paying you the $1,000, I've done my end of the transaction. As a parent, if you get your kids, I actually say I'm harder than you. Like I say 17. I say 17, they leave school, they're out, they're on their own. But you're saying 21, 22.
Process.
But but either way, once you've done your further study or whatever, you've done your bit as a parent. Like you're like the employer who's paid wages, and now the employee is coming back to you saying, hey, I want some more money just because this thing popped up.
Yeah.
Bad luck, mate. That's not how it works. You need to learn how to actually get through life with the resources you have. Now, if you want more resources, there's a heap of different ways to go and get money.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty of the market system, is that if you need more money, go and be more valuable to your employer. Go and do something on the side. Go and do more hours. Go and do some further training. Go and do something.
And this is the bad part, Dallas.
Yeah.
Like, these adult children aren't fully developing.
No.
Because there is no struggle. There is no progress because there is no struggle.
Exactly.
And Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are in their 50s, I've had this countless times where they've had the struggle, where they've looked back on their struggle with fondness.
Yes,
they've said, "Oh, remember that dump that we first rented when we moved out together, when we got married?
Yeah, had no curtains on the wall.
We had no curtains. We had to hang up old sheets.
We had on milk crates, and that was before it was hipster.
That's happened like countless times with me. Yep. But yet they feel the need.
Yep.
To make it much easier. What they think is making it much easier for their adult children.
Yeah.
And conceptually, I think deep down they know that it's bad. Yeah, it's bad long term.
Yeah,
and like we said, it's less than a zero sum game. It's bad for both. It's bad. It's certainly bad for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are in their 50s, and and were late to the party by getting the first lot of superannuation paid, which was usually in their mid to late 20s, versus their adult children who were paid superannuation from the time they got a part-time job at 15. So it is an exclamation mark. It's. I'm not dancing around this.
Yeah.
This will get some people offside, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Stop giving money to your adult children. Stop neglecting yourselves.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. For more information and resources, visit the Money Over 50 website, mo50.com.au. We look forward to catching up again soon.